Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. Massive results in the VCT world yesterday, especially with Sentinels looking their place in just about to the World Championship in Seoul in a few weeks' time. The VALORANT, they got the job done, but what does it mean for the rest of these teams, especially because G2 continue to impress in the Americas? That leaves 100T in a rather precarious position indeed. So much reaction today, the results of the last couple of days. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. But we'll get onto this in the coming minutes here because there's lots to say on these two respective teams and how they're going to fare in a couple of weeks' time because they will be there. But quickly on China, these are going to be your four teams that will be there at the World Championship in Seoul for China, right? Edward Gaming, Billy, I'm pretty sure have qualified as well. FPX, of course, and then Trace Esports. Now, the exciting thing about this is, I think, for the Chinese region, Edward for a long time were the team to beat, and that remains true, obviously. They are, nonetheless, despite their poor performances internationally, they made the change for Simon coming in lately, and they have seemed to have made some progress internally. But then again, they always tend to do this in China. They'll beat everyone they play, pretty much. And, they dominated this series against Trace Esports 13-2, 13-5, not even close. So maybe Edward Gaming are officially back. And if they are, then who knows how they can do internationally. But internationally, FPX were the team that was more competitive back in, obviously, Shanghai. But there now seems to be more close competition in the region, right? So I'm excited to see how these teams get on now because FPX 2-1'd Billy Gaming and, wasn't absolutely crushing at all of the maps, but it was 13-3 map 1 after a 14-12 loss. They then bounced back with a 13-10 win. But, excluding the Ascent, it was a close series. And then as it stands, we have a 2-2 game between Trace Esports and FPX to determine who is going to play Edward Gaming in the finals of the region, and a 13-11, a 13-8, and then FPX are making the reverse sweep happen, potentially 13-8 and then 13-9. We go to a Haven. Trace Esports are up 2-1 right now. So, it doesn't really massively matter who wins this series on the grand scheme of things, but it's still very interesting to see that FPX, how competitive they were, and now getting pushed by a team like Trace Esports. So, potentially we could have more than one competitive Chinese team in Seoul, which I'm hoping is going to be true, and I'm sure is going to be true more so over time as well. Just to quickly note, today's a pretty important game in the EMEA side, Vitality versus Heretics. That's coming up, of course, in a few hours' time, and then tomorrow, that's when the finals is going to be. All of these teams are at Champions, obviously. They've now locked that in by, of course, the top three teams being the top three teams. That's how you qualify. But all the storylines are going to come to their conclusion over the next couple of days, especially on the G2 100T situation, right? So this was a massively important series yesterday to determine could 100T or G2 lock up their qualification for the World Championship because of the way that Sentinels had enough points, right? And we'll see how that's worked out for them here in a second on the Leviathan side. It did just mean that 100T, they had to win. Crew had to win. G2 have to win, and they still potentially could. But, as we saw here, as Zelda says, that little piggy did not come back because, Boostio pulls straight off the map here on the Abyss, and, unlucky, you're out of there, sunshine. Well, I can actually just go full screen real quick to see it because Zelda's thought this is kind of funny. But you can see Boostio's little character in the background just straight fall off the map, and it didn't exactly help 100T in a moment where they needed every round they could potentially get because G2, they really handled business yesterday, and G2 continued to impress me. At the start of the season, there were guys like TMV, who I think in Man's VALORANT, he was putting G2 pretty high in his rankings, and I wasn't convinced by that, certainly not at the time. And maybe, you can argue whether that was fair or not, right? G2 didn't start the year especially well, but they've ended the year really strong, and they've done it again. After getting through challenges last year, it was the guards, right? Then it became G2. They've made a change or two here and there, but, top 3 in both America's stages, top 3 at Shanghai, and now they've qualified for champions, right? So really commendable to see that, many other teams in the Americas will be like, damn, there's no way these guys have just outclassed us despite coming from tier 2. The issue is for G2, not really an issue. They'll be fine, I think. But if you guys aren't familiar, for next year and beyond, there are new rules in place if you're a Challengers qualifying team through Ascension to determine whether you get to stay or not. Because right now, the idea is that G2 will have this year, next year, and then they'll be kicked out again. That was the initial idea. You get a 2-year guest slot and then you're gone. That's now no longer the rule. The rule is if you make champs, you extend. If you make top 8s, you fight. And if you miss playoffs, you get relegated. So G2 basically has to make champions again next year, and then they are guaranteed to be able to keep their spot in the league. Otherwise, things are somewhat questionable because even though they've made it this year, it actually doesn't matter because that's not what the rule is. And in the same way that if you're a team like Bleed Esports, you're not going to get relegated this year yet, although next year you will if you fail to turn it around. So as VALORANT says, GG is 2-0 versus 100T champions. Send Pig into the gauntlet. Good luck versus Crew, he says, because that is going to be like such a mega game. Literally is winner goes to champions, loser, their season is done. And as Leaf says, sat the Yapin Chihuahua down because, Boostio was dropping a Zelsis-esque tweet onto Leaf in the same way that Zelsis did to Boostio. And, Leaf then shuts him down and says, yeah, the Yapin Chihuahua, he's had enough of that. So, yeah, lots of reaction here from Zelsis and others. And also for Asenarites, because an 0-2 there is pretty rough. I know there was talk about, Thieves not delivering the performance that they would have wanted to, but someone had to lose, someone had to go to losers, and that is now where they find themselves. But the series wasn't even that close. That was, slightly the concerning thing. And as it turned out, 100T versus Crew. Winner makes champions, loser does not. But, pretty demolition job here, really, from G2. Like, really delivering performances. And I'm excited to see them play Lev, absolutely, especially because of the whole Tex thing, right? The change they made. Then, of course, Icy has come in more recently. But, Icy has 7 kills map 1. They win 13-5. And the Abyss was 13-10 on the 100T pick. So, impressive stuff from G2, absolutely. But this was the series that was causing a lot of the drama of the day because Lev, they were playing Crew Esports. They didn't need to win this one, Lev. It's nice to win, obviously, and they're going to try and win. But Crew needed it more than they did. But nonetheless, when you've got Aspas on your team, it's always nice. And Zelsis is here, sitting on the bed or whatever, watching the guys play and hoping that Lev would do enough to get Sentinels to the World Championship. And that's exactly what happened, right? So given the points that Sentinels have accrued, and I talked about this over the last couple of days, that like if you win Masters Madrid, I really feel like that should be an auto invitation or whatever. But nonetheless, because they were so good over so long and they got enough championship points from winning Masters Madrid and all this, they had enough points that regardless of what happens, they were going to be able to make it to the World Championship, and that, of course, is what is the case. So, despite the fact that they were not top 3, or basically all the other teams that qualified were there in the top 4 of their own region, not the case here for Sentinels, but I think it goes to show in part how competitive the Americas is. But also Sentinels, now they've qualified, they can think, all right, got away with one there. Their last couple of series weren't great. They fell short when it mattered. But thankfully for them, Lev bailed them out. And as we see here, right, the Sentinels guys are saying, I'll buy the Lev bundle, right? That was the exchange that they had agreed. But Lev 2-0'd Crew Esports, and this one was not even close. I mean, Aspas and Tex and King and even Common Mazina, like, this team is so scary right now. The numbers for Aspas do boggle the mind. I know that we talk about it all the time, but it's still just worth considering that in terms of first kills, Aspas had 11 and 0 first deaths. Like, he literally never died in a first blood engagement, which is ridiculous. Out of 40 kills, 11 of them were first kills, and he didn't even die once. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Icebox was then 13-2, Aspas goes 22-6, and then the Sunset, he had 8 first blood engagements on the Neon, and won all of them on the Neon. I mean, like, what more can you actually do against this guy? Ridiculous stuff. So, Crew got completely annihilated here, like 13-2, 13-4, completely spat out of the game, and, so Aspas goes through, and by going through in this way, he, as he says to Sassy here, see you in Seoul, my brother, always be here for you. So that was kind of cool, right, that, from the Aspas side, it felt like one of the reasons why he was really trying to win and really playing his best stuff was because he actually wanted Sentinels to qualify for his guy Sassy to make it as well. So I thought that was really quite nice to see. But for Sentinels, of course, they'll be happy with this. So Zelsis will be at Champions for the first time, Tex will be at Champions for the first time, and Gen.G will be at Champions for the first time. So Sentinels have made it, which I think is absolutely deserved. And as Zekin says, now I think about it, this year's format is actually really good. So obviously a bit tongue-in-cheek, right? We know that many players, the likes of Ethan and others, have been quite critical about the format in the last couple of weeks. The idea that, for NRG, their season is done now, and they have to wait a rather long time, NRG, to actually play any Valorant ever again. It's probably going to be effectively next year, right, for professional Valorant. And there will be some tournaments at the end of this season, off-season stuff, as we always see. And the players have complained about it, and I think there can be a much better job done in future years. And I personally still prefer the idea of a last chance qualifier to make it to the World Championship, but I think that as the stories have played out, it hasn't really been too bad. And the idea that there was a Champions Points situation to actually allow these guys to get through, you know, maybe there's something to take away from that in terms of next year's format, whether it's going to be the same or different or exactly what their plan is going to be. But I'm pretty sure as well, after the, let's say, Grand Finals ends in the Americas, so if we just have a quick look here at what that's looking like, as soon as this ends on the 21st of July, that's when I believe they are going to draw the teams into the groups, basically, for the World Championship in Seoul. So that's coming up over the coming days. We've got the big game tonight, Crew versus 100T. That determines the final team. I think the 100T should get the job done here. I think 100T 2-1 is the prediction that I'll be going for, but I think it can very much go either way. And then over the coming couple of days, we get the Lev versus G2 game today as well, which is very exciting because, you know, those are two teams I'm wanting to see play off against each other for some time, and, you know, we get to see how they fare. Liv obviously are going to go in as the favourites, and then after Sunday, after the Grand Finals, then we're going to find out very quickly afterwards what the World Championship is actually going to be looking like. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below as always. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.